are honored to host such a valuable panelist. First of all, I would like to invite co-founder at Alp Consultancy, retired Lieutenant General, Mr. Alparslan Erdoğan. Yes, now I would like to introduce our panelists. First of all, I would like to invite Directorate General for International Security, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Turkey, Mr. Mehmet Burçin Gönenli. Hoş geldiniz efendim. Now I would like to invite Lithuania Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Deputy Minister, Mr. Tarumas Valis. And our last panelist is Chargé d'Affaires, Embassy of Canada to Turkey, Mrs. Larissa Galatsa. Welcome. Yes, Mr. General, floor is yours.
Thank you. Distinguished guests, esteemed panelists, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure and honor to welcome you to this panel at Saha Expo, one of the most important international gatherings bringing together decision makers, industry leaders, diplomats, and experts from the defense, aerospace, and security sectors. Today, we will discuss a topic that sits at the very heart of the current geopolitical reality, the role of the defense and aerospace industry in shaping regional and global cooperation. We are living in a period in which security can no longer be understood only through borders, military capabilities, or national defense systems. Security today is deeply connected to diplomacy, technology, supply chains, industrial resilience, energy routes, cyber capabilities, space systems, and strategic partnership. In other words, defense and aerospace are no longer only about protection, they are also about cooperation, deterrence, and international trust. This makes our discussion particularly timely. Across the world, we are witnessing a rapid transformation of the security environment. The war in Ukraine has fundamentally changed the strategic calculation of Europe and the wider transatlantic community. It has reminded us that conventional threats have not disappeared, while at the same time, hybrid threats, cyber operations, disinformation, drone warfare, and critical infrastructure vulnerabilities have become central elements of the modern conflict. For the Baltic region, this reality is especially direct. Lithuania and its neighbors live at the front line of the European security. The threat perception shaped by the Russian Federation's actions in the region has strengthened the importance of the NATO solidarity, regional readiness, and deeper cooperation among allies. The Baltic experience shows us that security is a daily strategic concern that requires readiness, resilience, and strong partnership. At the same time, North America and the transatlantic alliance continue to play a decisive role in shaping the security architecture of the Europe and beyond. Cooperation between Europe, Canada, the United States, and Turkey is not only a matter of military cooperation. It is also a matter of shared values, defense industrial cooperation, and the ability to respond collectively to emerging threats. In this sense, transatlantic cooperation remains one of the most important pillars of the international security. Turkey, on the other hand, occupies a uniquely strategic position. Located the crossroad of the Europe, the Middle East, the Black Sea, the Caucasus, and the Eastern Mediterranean. Turkey is directly affected by the multiple wars, conflicts, and regional instabilities. From the war in Ukraine to the conflicts and ongoing operation and wars in the Middle East, from energy security to migration, from maritime security to counterterrorism, Turkey's security environment is both complex and multidimensional. This geography creates challenges, but it also creates opportunities. Turkey's growing defense and aerospace industry has become an important platform for cooperation with allies and partner countries. Turkish companies are increasingly active in areas such as unmanned systems, aerospace technologies, naval platform, electronic warfare, command and control systems, and advanced manufacturing. These capabilities can contribute not only to national security, but also to joint production, technology sharing, capacity building, and regional stability. Therefore, when we speak about defense and aerospace cooperation, we are not only speaking about procurement or equipment. We are speaking about strategic alignment. We are speaking about interoperability among allies. We are speaking about resilient supply chains, trusted partnerships, joint research and development, and the ability to act together in times of crisis and ongoing operations and wars. This is why today's panel brings together a highly valuable perspective. We are honored to have with us Ambassador Mehmet Burçin Gönenli from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Turkey, who also serves as the Director General for International Security. Ambassador Gönenli will help us understand Turkey's regional perspective, its diplomatic priorities, defense industry diplomacy, and Turkey's role within the broader Euro-Atlantic security architecture. We are also honored to welcome Taurimas Valis, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania, whose perspective from the Baltic region is extremely important at a time when regional security, deterrence, and resilience are at the top of Europe's agenda. And we are equally honored to welcome Ambassador Larissa Galadza, Chargé d'Affaires of the Embassy of Canada, representing a key North American and transatlantic partner with deep experience in international security, Ukraine, democratic resilience, and allied cooperation. Before we begin our discussion, let me briefly explain the format of the panel. Our conversation today will be structured in 2 rounds. In each round, I will address one question to each of our distinguished panelists. Each panelist will have approximately 10 minutes to share their remarks for each question. Following these 2 rounds, we will open the floor for a question and answer sessions with the audience. At the end of the panel, I will invite each panelist to share their final remarks with approximately 2 minutes allocated to each panelist. Within the format in mind, I would like to begin our first round of the question. I will start with Ambassador Mehmet Burçin Gönenli. Ambassador Gönenli, considering the changing conditions of warfare, how would you assess the ongoing and potential cooperation opportunities in the defense and aerospace industries in the region where Turkey, and how can Turkey's growing defense industry support more structured regional partnership with neighboring and allied countries? Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's working, I guess. First of all, it's on, I guess. So, thank you very much. Let me first thank you, Saha, for inviting me to this organization. and it's a pleasure to be here with Deputy Minister Wallis and Ambassador Galadza. To begin that question, let me provide a little bit of background on how Turkey reached this stage. In the post-Cold War environment, when Europe was benefiting from the peace dividends and many of our allies, Turkey met or had to face a number of crises taking place in the Balkans, Caucasus, and the Middle East. And that period has not allowed us to benefit from the peace dividend. On the contrary, Turkey always had to demonstrate its deterrence and defense capabilities and had to be on alert. And also we had to fight terrorism, which remains the top national security priority until today. This obliged Turkey to enter into various defense industry cooperation projects with our allies and with our European and transatlantic partners. But in the meantime, we also realized that we need to develop our own deterrent and defense capabilities for long-term sustainability, for self-sufficiency, and to ensure that we can carry out our sovereign operations. And while we are developing our own capabilities, this doesn't mean that we are kind of deconflicting ourselves from our allies. NATO and consultation and coordination with allies have always been a top priority. But now, looking at the current dynamics of warfare, we are in a period where warfare is evolving very fast. It is about adaptability, sustainability. You need to establish a supply chain security. You need to have interoperability where needed. We see those lessons from the case in Ukraine, but we are looking also at the cases in the Middle East. So, in general, we are focusing on areas such as missile defense is very important in this region, looking at the dynamics. Counter unmanned systems and warfare that incorporates unmanned systems is very important. We are looking at border security. We are looking at counter-terrorism, and of course we are looking at defense and supply chain resilience. So those 5 areas in general provide us with an outline on where we should focus, given Turkey's trajectory of defense industry cooperation, but also it also provides us with a roadmap on where we can develop partnerships with other regional countries, because at the end of the day we are not on our own, and in order to establish an integrated deterrence and defense, we need to cooperate with our partners too. So Turkey wants to enhance its partnerships with our allies and partners, transatlantic allies, European allies, and regional partners. To do so, and I need to say this because before this panel, someone asked me whether we are combining defense industry with diplomacy. Yes, we do. That's why specifically under my directorate, we have established a deputy directorate taking care of defense industry cooperation. So we are trying to merge diplomacy and defense industry because this is an important area for Turkey. This is an area where we do not only supply off-the-shelf capabilities to our partners, but we are building in-depth partnerships. Partnerships that focus on what General Alparslan would know, and most of you, is when I was working at NATO, there is a concept called, not the abbreviation, MLPFI. So we are focusing on doctrine, organization, training, material, facilities, and interoperability. So when we enter into partnerships with regional countries or our allies, we are trying to develop joint doctrines, joint training mechanisms, interoperability schemes, and since we are a member of NATO for the past 74 years, and next year is going to be 75, our products are up to NATO standards, plug and play. So Turkey, on the one hand, tries to enhance its own capabilities with high-end products, including electronic warfare. We are trying to enter into partnerships and deepen our partnerships with regional countries, again focusing on maritime security, air defense, border security, counterterrorism, and supply chain resilience. And in doing so, in carrying forward our partnerships with regional countries, again, we are trying to provide them with predictable, sustainable, and reliable partnership schemes where we do not where we try to develop long-term partnerships and joint opportunities that would be a win-win, that would provide win-win solutions for everyone. And we are trying to combine with an effective diplomacy or kind of defense industry diplomacy in a way, so that we can enlarge the circle of stability around Turkey and to distant geographies. I think I'm going to stop here.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Gönenli. If there's any possibility, can you a little bit mention more about, defense industry diplomacy in scope of the, the last two Antalya Diplomacy Forum? As far as I know, there are many panels, they conducted in scope of the Antalya Diplomacy Forum. Can you a little bit more about, the defense industry diplomacy? Some of our audience also requested this issue.
So, at the Antalya Diplomacy Forum, we more talked about, there was a specific session on NATO and what we can do more with NATO countries. And of course, we have the upcoming NATO Ankara Summit, which will take place on 7 and 8 July in Ankara. And on the margins of this summit, we will also organize, NATO will organize a NATO Defense Industry Forum 2, where allied companies from allies will get together, bring their heads together, and discuss the future of NATO interoperability, supply chain security. Because we are kind of encountered with the situation where, on the one hand, we are looking at the future, advanced capabilities, but we realize from the lessons learned in Ukraine that still nothing can replace 155 millimeter shell.
Yeah.
So that is one thing that we are going to discuss. But when we look at the defense cooperation diplomacy from our perspective, this means not only, as I tried to say, selling off-the-shelf products to whoever it wants, but can we develop mutually beneficial partnerships with our close partners and allies? This is one question. Of course, our allies, 31 of them, and 2 of them are here, are very valuable to Turkey, that we need to cooperate with them. But there are also some other allies and partner countries. For example, I can cite Azerbaijan, I can cite some countries in Central Asia. We have partners, foremost Qatar in the Middle East, that we are trying to develop long-term, mutually beneficial partnerships with them. And we are trying to do it in a responsible way, encouraging them also to use those capabilities for self-defense in a responsible way, in a transparent way, and we are trying to developing this defense industry cooperation and also in full compliance with export control regimes too. But we are also trying to do the same with our partners in Africa too. So when we enter into those partnerships with African countries, we are trying to enable them to defend themselves foremost against threats such as countering terrorism, because they don't have the capabilities. We have seen time and again that terrorist organizations are trying to exploit conducive ground to carry out their objectives, and someone should resist them. And the best way to do it is to build indigenous defense capability. And Turkey, while we had in early 2000s only 12 embassies in Africa, we developed the number of our embassies to 44 now. We have established air connectivity with those countries, and now our defense companies and the rest of private sector is doing intense business there with a not domineering perspective, but with a win-win partnership based on equal benefits, mutual benefits. So we are trying to pursue an integrated approach that brings connectivity, diplomacy, defense industry cooperation, and rest of economic cooperation all together.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Gönenli. Very valuable insight. Thank you. Mr. Thomas Valsi, considering the changing condition of warfare, how would you assess the ongoing and potential cooperation opportunities in the defense and aerospace industries in Baltic region? From the Baltic perspective, what are the most urgent areas for regional defense and aerospace cooperation today? And how can countries such as Turkey, with its expanding defense industry, contribute to the security and resilience of the Baltic region? Please.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I will not be able to keep the eye contact because I need to keep the microphone on that side. Sorry. Oh, I can use. Hello.
Is it working? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations with this wonderful event. It's really impressive, and it's obviously, you are the greatest, host, for this kind of, occasion, and plus, as it was mentioned before, you'll be hosting, the NATO summit this year in July. So it's a good start already. It's really impressive for our government. It's really important, to have such kind of allies. Second largest army in among the NATO members, and it's very great honor and pleasure to be here. We already got very positive feedback from your market players. It's already a really inspiring start. Coming back to your question, I'd like to highlight a few things from our side, from Lithuania. Since we got our independence 36 years ago, we've done a lot, including our security element. In 2004, we became members of NATO and European Union. Also, we became a part of the Schengen Eurozone and also OECD. And it looks like, that we kind of got into some kind of twilight zone where we kind of felt that everything is accomplished. There was no ambition, and we kind of, had some lack of inspiration. What's next? And before this, obviously, we became sober in 2008 when we all faced, terrible thing, during the Olympics when the Russian Federation attacked Georgia, your neighbor, Perhaps you were much more worried about what's going on because it was right next on your door. So you have this empathy among, the NATO members, which is really, really needed. You understand what's going on very, very well. And then, it was the first sign that, we should more concentrate it. We shouldn't relax. And what happened later in 2014 and further, especially in 2024 after COVID, it was another sign for us that, we should be united. Obviously, terrorism and the mentioned risks are terrible. We're really, supporting, your efforts, to fight it, and in any kind of measures. But on the other hand, what's going on, like in our neighborhood, with our neighbors, is another, sign that we must be as resilient as is possible. So what we did, instead of being, too concerned, and instead of crying, we decided to make a decision that we want to be the most resilient, country in the region. Like some others, like yourself, that we made a very determined, position in terms of our defense industry by allocating most of our GDP, to the defense industry. So, which in Lithuania is 5.38% from our GDP. Take into account that we're amongst, the growing economies in European Union per capita. We're number one in NATO, and we're really, trying to inspire other NATO members to do the same. At least go closer to 5% of GDP. And for us, it's really clear that if we don't do this, we will not be, capable to have this kind of right. Otherwise, the enemy will consider us as a weaker part, and they will keep, doing that they started, in Georgia, Ukraine, and elsewhere before. So for us, it's very clear, and we're very, always give a Turkish approach, when you are very determined, very clear about your messages to the same aggressor. And we really appreciate your very strong, very clear approach regarding them. I will not go into details. Perhaps you've heard about good examples in the Aerospace and what kind of message could be sent, what kind of message sometimes are being postponed, and it doesn't pay back in the long term, in my opinion, perspective. So coming back to the Baltics, obviously we're very, very positive about the fact that our neighbors, Sweden and Finland, has joined NATO. Now we're completely, covering the whole Baltic Sea region. Plus, obviously there are two let's say, sorts of EU members who are a bit further from the aggressor and who are, just on the border. So, but we're satisfied that now we're completely covering the whole part from Norway all the way to Finland, the Baltics, Poland, Slovakia, Romania, Bulgaria, and Turkey. So we have with a full coverage on our border. And obviously, when we speak about priorities, perhaps the biggest priority for all NATO should be strengthening this part. And then I see the cooperation among these mentioned countries as intensive as is possible. We're quite confident in the Baltic Sea area, but our cooperation in Ukraine, where we're also allocating one of the biggest parts from our GDP, 0.25% from our GDP is allocated in order to support Ukraine. So I think it's another great area for cooperation because, obviously you have other areas where you can test your technologies, which gives you another privilege to be more competitive in terms of technologies when you test your technologies in the battlefield. But also Ukrainian, fight gives us another opportunity by supporting them to become more competitive with our technologies. So again, I see it is a great area of cooperation, and we already have this. Our engineers, our defense industry representatives, they're always in Ukraine, like Turkish as well, as far as I know. So we believe that this struggle, this challenge, is on behalf of our side, is being transformed into new opportunities for our economies. So it's a good also step forward. And again, I would like to highlight the fact that we have around 100 companies in Lithuania that they're quite proactive in defense industry. I was just, last week I was in LA. Here we have this. Next we had Dymex, conference, one of the biggest conference in defense industry. I know that a lot of Turkish companies will come to Lithuania as well. So this shows a, big, renaissance, in this area, and it's a good sign. And coming back to our Lithuanian case, our presidents, Lithuanian and Polish presidents, they agreed that we will try to develop our quite unique niche free economic zone. It's going to be quite unique thing because there will be two European Union member states, Poland and Lithuania, that they will have mutual free economic zone just for defense industry. So it's a good sign. It's a good news that it's possible to get financing from European Commission in that case. Plus, we already got so much of positive feedback from major market players from United States, from Canada, from Norway, even also from Turkey. So we believe that it's going to be another good example in order to boost our competitiveness in the defense industry, and that's going to allow us to be more safe. And the more safe other member states are, the safe you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Vasi, for your very valuable insight. Now, I would like to turn to Ambassador Galadza. Considering the changing conditions of warfare, how would you assess the ongoing and potential cooperation opportunities in the defense and aerospace industries in North America? Where do you see the strongest potential for practical cooperation with Turkey? Floor is yours, Ambassador Galadza.
Thank you very much. I'll answer your first question very simply to say I think that the potential has never been greater, unfortunately. But let me back up. Ambassador Günenli talked about the peace dividend and how Turkey didn't very much profit from the peace dividend. I would say Canada is on the other end of that spectrum. We profited hugely from the peace dividend, surrounded by three oceans and a partner, a neighbor to the south with whom we had the most extensive integration I think the two countries could possibly have when it comes to defense and security. The changing conditions of war, changing geopolitics have woken us up to the new reality. And in addition to what the other two panelists have said in terms of what has changed, I would say here are four areas where, for Canada, the changes have been particularly profound, or have struck us and are shaping what we're doing in the future. The first, I would say, is the importance of having sovereign capabilities. And for Canada, sovereign capability in communications and sovereign capability in ammunition manufacturing are particularly highlighted in our defense industrial strategy. The second thing is the importance of air defense, and over a massive landmass like Canada, that presents particular challenges for sensing and for responding. The third area is agility, and if there's one thing that we've learned from Ukrainians and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and how Ukrainians are keeping up the fight 4 years plus in, is that you have to constantly innovate, and you must be agile in response to the enemy's tactics. And that's something that has to be baked into DNA. That is about entrepreneurship. That's about tight coordination between industry and the soldier on the front line, and that's about interoperability as well with your allies. And the last area in which I think where we are putting a huge emphasis now, we're all very aware of what's happening on NATO's eastern flank. Canada is there in great numbers on NATO's eastern flank. But NATO also has a northwest flank. And so protecting the Arctic is another area where we are focusing, both in NATO and at home, and an area where there's huge opportunities for cooperation. So how do we facilitate this between Canada and Turkey? Like this, here at Saha, doing the defense diplomacy that Ambassador Günenli talked about. It's making sure that our partners know what's happening in Canada and where the opportunities are and how to connect into them. SAHA has been a great opportunity for the Government of Canada. We had our Secretary of State for Defence Procurement, as well as our CEO for the Defence Investment Agency. Both of these are brand new positions in the last year in Canada. And this was the first time that those two entities were abroad at a fair like this. They met with CEOs of companies to understand what's happening in Turkey, and they met with ministers, and they met with the head of the procurement agency of Turkey. And what struck us is that Turkey has undergone a massive shift in the last 15 years, the kind of shift that we need to make, Canada needs to make in the next 5 years. And so there's a lot of cooperation that we will do government to government to learn how Turkey did that and to transmit that into our industry and transmit that into how we implement our defense industrial strategy. But I think it's also been a really great opportunity for Canadian companies. I've been speaking to them, and they talk about the opportunities that they see here. And I think that this is an opportunity for Turkey to understand Canada's strengths. Let me list just some of them. Engines, helicopters, simulators, armored vehicles, satellites. We've made a significant investment recently in an indigenous launch capability. Command systems, sensor systems, and also in terms of energy. Canada's an energy powerhouse. SMRs and the supply chain for small modular reactors, hydrogen, critical minerals. We need to be out in the world, but particularly with our allied friends, to sell what Canada has. We have what you need, and we're here to cooperate with you on that. There are many cooperation mechanisms to do that, and maybe I can speak about that in our next later on, because a lot of them are in the context of NATO. But I think what I would say here is Canada has a lot of money to spend. We are going to the 2%. We have gone to the 2%. In 1 year, we went from less than 1.5% of GDP to 2%. That meant a $63 billion spend on defense in 2025. And as our GDP grows, that number will grow. And it's a challenge to get that money out the door, but we must do it because the circumstances demand it. So our house is in order in that we have a defense industrial strategy. The plan and the priorities are set. The money is in place. We are building new investment mechanisms for R&D. We're building new investment mechanisms for scale-up, and we have and we're going to be out in the world selling what the world needs. So I think that there are many strengths. It will be for businesses to find each other, and here I would point out Musiad Canada has done a really great job of reaching out into the Canadian defense industry and bringing those companies to Turkey to make the connections. Yesterday, I was at a B2B session. That is exactly how our two countries are going to do more to cooperate more in defense industry and in our collective security.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Galaza. Thank you. Now we are again turn to Ambassador Gönenli, please. Ambassador Gönenli again turned, considering the recent and ongoing war conditions, how would you assess the current and potential cooperation opportunities in the global defense and aerospace industry? What opportunities do you see for Turkey to become an even more active contributor to allied defense and aerospace system? Could developments in this context lead to new polarization in international relations? Floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Globally, there are several flashpoints, and countries are trying to make sure that they have enough defensive capabilities, and more importantly, they want to ensure that they have the requisite doctrines and the knowledge, training, so that they can operate those capabilities. And also they are trying to make sure that they can sustain those capabilities for a relatively long period of time, that they don't run out of ammunitions or capabilities in early days of a conflict or crisis. In that terms, Turkey is offering from Indo-Pacific to the Middle East, from Africa to Euro-Atlantic. It is its partnership, its capabilities, its know-how, and long-term maintenance and supply reliability. We look forward to intensifying our cooperation with our allies and partners, as I said, and this, I welcome the comments of Deputy Minister Wallace and Ambassador Galadza in that regard. But in our opinion, or from our vantage point, we don't want to use defense industry cooperation as something that's going to cause fragmentation or friction across the world. We are, as I said, foremost from our perspective, defense industry cooperation is something that should be used in a way to enhance self-defense and should not trigger new conflicts, and that's something we are keeping an eye on. As far as the Euro-Atlantic partnerships is concerned, now everyone is following the discussions about on both sides of the Atlantic about the request of the US administration to Europeans, and this includes Canada from our perspective too. You may be situated on the other side of the Atlantic, but you're a European partner for us, as Prime Minister Carney also said. So that there is a request. This request has intensified lately, but this is not something new. The previous US administrations also asked European allies to step up to the plate and to assume more responsibility. Turkey hears this request, and that's what we have already been doing, to do more, to contribute to security on both sides of the across Euro-Atlantic and also in other regions. While we are situated on the southeastern flank of NATO alliance, Turkey has been making contributions to different parts of the alliance too. For example, we are looking currently at how we can contribute more to the security in the Arctic. Turkish F-16s will soon be deployed to Estonia to contribute to NATO air policing. Turkish F-16s will also be deployed to Romania for NATO air policing. Our AWACS aircraft serves in the Baltics in support of enhanced enhanced vigilance activities in that region. Our Turkish Anadolu Task Group was recently deployed to Germany, over 6,000 kilometers away, 2,000 personnel, 4 ships, to participate in steadfast Dart exercise, but also this demonstrates the deployability of the Turkish armed forces and our willingness to contribute to deterrence and defense at every corner of the alliance. We could not have done this if we didn't have the requisite capabilities. So that's why Our defense industry is very important. The work of our 3,500 companies is very important, and their innovation is very important. What we are offering from Turkey's perspective is we are offering battle-tested, combat-proven capabilities. Our armed forces provide feedback to defense industry. Defense industry works very closely with universities and other research and development institutions. So we constantly innovate, upgrade, update, and provide affordable responses, affordable and effective responses that can respond to the requirements of the modern warfare, modern battlefield. That said, Turkish defense industry can and is capable of and can make a lot of contributions to our allies. We already do. We have already engaged in partnerships with, for example, Lithuania. Our companies, Makine Kimya Endüstri, MKE is there, RJ is there. We have been developing our partnerships with Italy, Spain, Romania, Poland, and now Ambassador Galaz also gave some promising news about an increased defense industry cooperation between Turkey and Canada, which we would only welcome. So if we can improve together European capabilities, this is something that will strengthen the transatlantic bond. And I want to give this message. We are not trying to improve our capabilities so that we can get separated from others. We are doing it to be united with our partners and allies. When we develop European pillar, we do not want to do this at the expense of the transatlantic bond, but we want to do this to strengthen the transatlantic bond. And that's the mindset in which we are working. But I must also, not everything is rosy. I should touch upon the European Union in this regard too, because as allies, we are working at NATO closely together, consulting with one another. But European Union is also a great enabler in Europe. They are trying to encourage EU members to develop their capabilities, which is fine. But from our perspective as a non-EU country, the European Union's activities is being carried forward in a too protective and too exclusionary manner. And this does not only apply to Turkey, but we have the recent example of UK. I know Canada signed an agreement to participate in security action for Europe with the European Union. But at the end of the day, if we don't work together, the EU's exclusionary approaches may cause some degree of fragmentation in Europe between EU member allies and non-EU member allies. We don't want this to happen. That's why we are trying to engage the European Union as much as possible so that we can carry forward defense industry cooperation together, and the EU can benefit from Turkey's high defense industry capacity too, because that's also something we offer. A large defense industry capacity which would benefit transatlantic deterrence and defense altogether.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Gönenli. Very valuable insight. Now I would like to turn to Deputy Minister Valsi. Actually, how can global and transatlantic defense cooperation be strengthened in response to the evolving threat perception from the Russian Federation? In this context, what role can Turkey play as a NATO ally in supporting deterrence and defense industrial cooperation between the Baltic region and the wider alliance? Floor is yours, Ambassador.
Thank you very much for a very good question. So first of all, I'd like to highlight, a few steps that were made, by aggressor, So, and what happened later, and then it just explains, the logics then and potential, like development, of particular, trends. So first of all, let's remember what happened in 2008 after 20% of sovereign country Georgia was just taken in the middle of Olympics, when nothing, any kind of military, actions are completely unacceptable, and nothing happened. The world was just watching, and just we were too passive in order to prevent it, obviously, because when we know the mentality of the aggressor, because we were under their occupation for almost 50 years, and we know that their mentality is just, if they are not stopped, they will keep doing that. And obviously in 2014, they just, kept working on that direction. And so what's going to happen later? And again, nothing happened in 2014. Of course, we had some, some statements about their this behavior and like some kind of inappropriate, actions. But then in general, like, we were still quite too passive, I would say, like as NATO, because it was happening in our like neighborhood. And then, and like obviously we became all sober in 2022 when we realized that, look, if this keeps going on, like we're the next ones, right? So, I think, and when we speak about Turkish and Baltic, cooperation potential for us, it's very, very important and crucial, because as I mentioned before, you already tested, a lot of the equipment, and especially, in some of the battlefields against Russian, technologies, which is in Caucasus and in Ukraine, especially. And having your know-how, gives us a lot of hope that we're going to be, we might be much more competitive in the battlefield, not just our region, but in general in NATO. And your knowledge is like really priceless. And but coming back to our approach, we should understand, like, even the end of the current war in Ukraine depends on our position as well. If we're too weak, if we give too many discounts, and if Ukraine doesn't, get particular guarantees that, at least it could be frozen somehow, or like, but there must be big guarantees, on behalf of, for their side, and otherwise they will keep doing that, and because their mentality is like this imperialistic, approach. Having as much as is possible, trying to feed their electorate, by some kind of weird hopes. Even though the economy goes down, they're isolated, and there's no future for such kind of behavior. We all know what happened, to such kind of regimes, during the Second World War. So obviously, we should now also focus not only just into some kind of prevention, but also like to what's going on in Ukraine, because the future will also depend on like how it's going to end as well. And of course, we have some other phenomena that it's possible at least to freeze some kind of conflicts for decades. On the other hand, we all should never forget that if we make a mistake, something might be, tested on NATO as well. So we must be as smart as is possible.
Thank you so much, Mr. Varsi. Now, we would like to turn to, again, Ambassador Galadza. Ambassador Galadza, considering the recent and ongoing war conditions, how would you assess the current and potential cooperation opportunities in the global defense and aerospace industry, and how do you see the future of global and transatlantic defense and aerospace cooperation between Canada, Turkey, and other NATO allies? In particular, what opportunities exist for cooperation in innovation, defense technology, critical supply chains, and joint capability development? Floor is yours.
Thank you. As I said in my earlier answer, Canada has elaborated a defense industrial strategy. And I would suggest any Turkish company or government official who wants to know how to get into that market to read that strategy. It is built on 3 approaches for procurement, defense procurement. And again, huge money. The first is that we're going to build as much as we can ourselves. So in that, there are supply chain opportunities for Turkish companies. The second approach, where we can't build it ourselves, we will partner. And this is partner to develop and partner to build. And here, it's a deeper kind of a relationship with allied countries, with the industries in Turkey and Canada. And the third way that we will procure is to buy. If we can't build it and we don't have time to partner and develop it, then we're just going to buy it if it exists elsewhere. And here in Turkey, we see a huge opportunity, and the companies are finding each other. But I think that when it comes to the transatlantic space, there are a couple of things that I would say. First, we need to cooperate in the diplomatic space. And here, Prime Minister Carney has been very clear and grateful to President Erdogan for everything that Turkey is doing, whether it's on the war in the Middle East or it's the war in Ukraine. The role that Turkey is playing to reduce the demand for all of this stuff we see here is really important. The second area for cooperation, I think, is in the non-kinetic space, and the ways in which Russia is attacking, in particular, Russia is attacking us in the cognitive space, in the cyberspace, in the information space. And here, I think there's more room for cooperation inside the NATO tent. And then when it comes to cooperation and operations, Canada's leadership in the multinational brigade in Latvia, where 14 countries are cooperating to show an enhanced forward presence of NATO, is exactly where our technology, our know-how, our doctrine, our standards all come together and get tested. And I've been to our base in Latvia, and there is nothing more valuable than cooperating in the field to figure out what works and what doesn't, to figure out if we are in fact speaking the same language. And so I think that there will be companies meeting each other here and finding ways to be part of our build partner buy construct. But ultimately, as NATO partners, we're going to operate together, and we're going to test the strength of our diplomatic engagements, of our business engagements, of our R&D engagements. There are a couple of other areas where I think that there are opportunities, in particular for innovation and for scale-up. First, in NATO's Diana program, we have a situation where this concept where challenges are issued, and companies, whether they're in Turkey, in Lithuania, or in Canada, can sign up to be eligible to participate in these challenges and find ways of cooperating that they never thought existed. So it's a great accelerator. And that's under the auspices of NATO, where Turkey and Canada can cooperate across the aerospace and defense sphere. The second place where we can cooperate and are cooperating is with the Defense Security Resilience Bank. This is a new facility that will help small and medium-sized businesses in particular access capital to scale up production. We need companies to be ready to produce more when we need them to produce more. And we have realized we have this chicken and egg problem where, companies won't invest in production capability unless they have a contract, and we don't issue contracts fast enough. So the Defense Security and Resilience Bank, where both Canada and Lithuania are taking, and Turkey are taking active part in discussions on its creation will be a huge accelerator for the companies in our countries who are looking to stay are looking to build what we need to build and to stay relevant in the changing context of war.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Galasa, for your valuable insights from the transatlantic perspective. Thank you. Now I will open the question and answer period. If there is any question from our audience, please feel free to ask your questions. Okay, is there anybody? Okay.
Hello? Yeah.
Please introduce yourself as well.
My name is Gökhan Önal. I'm involved in a lot of projects in Canada, and we do a lot of partnerships there. When I was visiting Winnipeg, I was surprised to see that Canadian aerospace industry was really huge before. And I saw the similar story. Actually, my friends were sad a little bit because Canada shut down all these technologies. People are transferred to NASA. So we had similar story in history because somebody said us, we can manufacture for you, give up. So this mindset has changed, or Canada will start, or there is a change for this because it's really sad. Canada was having the fastest fighter jets in the world on that time, I guess. I was really surprised to hear that. And there was a great museum there. Yeah? So what are your thoughts on this?
I think you're talking about the Avro Aero. Yes. That is a really important story from our history, and you're right that we are taking a very different approach, and I hope that your friends in Winnipeg will be happy. We got ourselves, again, this peace dividend, we got ourselves into a situation where we were spending 70 cents of every defense dollar in the United States, when they were very capable in companies in Canada who could do the same for us, and we could have been reinvesting in the Canadian economy. Now, that 70 cents on every dollar included, Americans buying a lot of, Canadian parts, and the supply chains were integrated. But the know-how, the sovereign capability to do things for ourselves, we've recognized that needs to change. And if you read the Defense Industrial Strategy, it is precisely about supporting Canadian businesses, Canadian innovation, Canadian technology, Canadian IP, using the resources that we have, the critical minerals, the energy, and the advanced manufacturing capacity that we have to bring home that production. But not to do it in a protectionist way. To do it with others who want to do it with us, but a lot more on our terms, and a lot more in Canada. And I spoke with two very large companies in Turkey, one who has already established a presence in Canada, and another that is looking for the best way to establish a presence in Canada, because that will give them a leg up on all of this procurement, the $63 billion and growing every year that needs to be spent on defense. So hopefully your Canadian friends in Winnipeg have noticed this, and we will not redo the mistakes of the past, and we won't put ourselves in a situation where our economic integration can be weaponized against us, and our supply chain integration, it becomes a vulnerability.
Thank you. Is there any question? More question? I think no more question. And the final session, if there's our panelists would like to add something more, starting from Ambassador Gönenli, if you would like to add something more, please.
Just very briefly, yeah, we are now, I think we are living in a more uncertain period. And many countries and allies want to be prepared for this in a predictable manner, in a connected manner. And Turkey is capable of contributing to closer defense industry cooperation with our allies and with our partners. We are proud that for the Turkish armed forces, now we can produce almost 82% of our indigenous capabilities. But there is also an 18% where we are cooperating with our allies, and we will learn from one another. And I'd like to, since we will be hosting the NATO summit, I would like to close by making another reference to the NATO summit. Our allied heads of state and government will gather in Ankara. Of course, they are going to discuss how we can enhance our cooperation, how we can get better prepared to the conflicts, how we can enhance our resilience and upgrade our deterrence and defense. But among other things, we will try to keep a 360-degree approach to security around the Atlantic. But the NATO Defense Industry Forum is an important aspect of that summit, bringing together allied companies. And we encourage all allies, including Lithuania and Canada, to display a strong presence there so that our defense industries can interact more, can discuss more, and can come up with solutions that will not only address the necessities of today, but also can respond to the requirements of the future too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so summarizing, this panel, I'd like to highlight, a few aspects as well. So I always, try to highlight the things that, we can identify as lessons learned, in particular, crucial cases. So what the current war, some particular wars in the Middle East and Caucasus and, especially Ukraine, teaches us that, the entire concept of war has changed a lot. If we see, for example, when there's like 100,000 or like million, cost equipment could be destroyed by a few €100 drone, we need to rethink about like our, expenditure strategy, about our military strategy, and obviously it changes the whole concept of war. Plus, we shouldn't forget about the different hybrid, forms of war, hybrid attacks. Unfortunately, during the past, I would say like 5 years, NATO is already in a hybrid, war, because members like Lithuania, like Latvia, like Poland, like Romania, I'm pretty sure that Turkey as well, we already, are on the hybrid attacks of aggressor. For example, there was time when we as Lithuania, we were getting, illegal refugees. Now, recently, we started getting, so-called illegal cigarette balloons, that are kind of by accident going directly to our national airport, and our civil aviation is like, is being paralyzed. We're already, losing, a lot of, investments, the image as a so-called, safe country, and is affected, obviously. And then we should also, be very cautious about what kind of measures, we should, apply, for such kind of situation. And plus, obviously, when I see in Ukraine, situation in Ukraine, energy sector is very important, because the targets are energy, objects. So what we have in Lithuania, we're hosting, NATO Center of Energy Security Center of Excellence with a lot of participants from different EU, NATO member states, including Turkey and other NATO members, and we would like to invite more. I believe that Canada will join us as well very soon to our NATO Energy Center of Excellence. And we have other NATO, formats of cooperation. So we should, not forget that, and we don't forget obviously, but we should highlight the fact that contemporary war is becoming more sophisticated, more complex, and once you realize that some tank is entering the particular area, before there were a lot of efforts made by hybrid forms of these made by the aggressor. So I'm glad that NATO becomes more resilient in terms of hybrid attacks, and we should continue that direction.
Thank you. Yes.
I think I'll just rely on the fact that we're all diplomats up here, and maybe say something about the importance of continued diplomacy, and how, as diplomats, we're being asked more and more to become salespeople for our own countries and what we have to offer in this complex environment. I would highlight that Canada has recognized the need to be agile, to procure at the speed of relevance, to support its industries, to support partnership opportunities, and all of this is laid out clearly and it is funded generously. And I think that it starts with it starts and is underpinned by a very strong relationship that our leaders have. Prime Minister Carney and President Erdogan have said this is going to be a stronger relationship. And given how many interests we have in common, and given how strong we are as allies in NATO, I think the opportunities are significant. We are far away from each other. Opportunities like Saha allow us to get to know each other better at the level of government, and at the level of business. So, to the extent that we can innovate together, we can spend together, and we can operate together, I think we'll have stronger also collective security and live better together.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Galassa. Thank you. As we come to the end of our panel, I would like to sincerely thank our distinguished panelists for their valuable insight, fruitful reflections, and contributions to this important discussion. Today, we had the opportunity to explore defense and aerospace cooperation from regional and global perspective. We discussed the evolving nature of warfare, the importance of resilience and interoperability, the security concerns of the Baltic region, the role of North America and Canada, and Turkey's growing contribution to regional and allied defense ecosystem. I would also like to thank our audience for their attention and valuable question. On behalf of Saha, Expo, and myself, thank you once again to our panelists and to all of you for joining us today. I wish you a pleasant continuation of the event. Thank you.
Thank you to our distinguished guest, our moderator, and our panelists for their valuable contributions. Thank you so much. To mark this special day, we have small tokens of appreciation for them. May I ask from you to give these tokens to our panelists, please? Paşamınkine. Genel Müdürüm, bir aile fotoğrafı rica edeceğiz. And now we want family photo, please. Thank you so much. And also, dear guests, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a nice day.